Let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams here for a little bit. Look, the Rams are kind of one of those under the radar contenders as we head into training camp in 2024. This is a team chock full of veteran playmakers and young playmakers, certainly on offense. They've actually added a couple good guys too to help this team going forward. And that leads us directly into today's story, today's update on the Rams, talking about a new playmaker and the Rams' smart move with them. Let's get into this report and then we'll talk about it on the other side. This is courtesy of the Sporting News. The Los Angeles Rams surprised many when they opted to select Michigan running back Blake Corum with the 83rd pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. The Rams needed to address their running back depth behind 2023 standout Kyron Williams, but not many anticipated they would do so as early as the third round of the draft. However, Corum will be a featured part of their offense in 2024 and beyond. I think they're going to use me a little differently than Michigan did. I was more of a bell cow back. I was running the ball 20 plus times a game. I didn't really catch the ball much, but you see how they use Kyren, who is a great running back. I think they're going to use me as a real three down running back, a guy that can catch, pass pro, and run the ball. They want a guy that can do it all, and I can do that for them. All right, so it sounds like the Rams have a clear strategy for Blake Corum and Kyren Williams as part of a package deal in this offense. Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. But first, Rams fans in the comment section below, got an interesting question for you guys to answer today. Who is the greatest running back in Rams history? There are two names very distinctly at the top of the list, but you can only pick one. Give us the greatest running back in Rams history and put it in the comment section below. But Miles, give me your thoughts on the strategy the Rams are using here with Blake Corum in the offense.
Yeah, and I think it's a really smart strategy by the Rams, Sean McVay and co. Leslie. They've really kind of put their heads together and started to go towards the new way of drafting players. We talked about it earlier on this offseason with the additions of guys like Verse and Fisk. We've talked about it with other teams, other teams looking at third down or third string or number three wide receivers and how they can fit into their teams and really add some additions early on. I think when you look at players differently in the past, there's only been really two ways teams have drafted players. You either hear the best player available approach, where you get the best guy on the board at that time, or you draft because of need. You usually reach a little bit to get a guy that can really help you right now. But there's a third option we've been seeing just a very select few of very smart teams do, and that is getting guys who can fit into a trio, a niche, a dual backfield. We're talking about the Rams in the running back position, a guy that can come in and add immediate, be a contributor, do a lot of great things for this Rams team, and I think that's exactly what they're doing with Blake Corum. Like the article said, people were surprised that they got Blake Corum, but the Rams see something in Blake Corum that they thought was immediately going to help this offense out because this is a great team, Super Bowl contending team, but they just need a little bit of help. And they think Blake Corum can be in this backfield because, like Kyron Williams, he was a bell cow last year, but comes back to bite you every so often when those guys go down. They have Blake Corum now to mix into that backfield and do all kinds of different stuff, catch passes, pass protection, and run the ball, obviously, as well. I think he's set up beautifully, and I think the Rams are really seeing a new way of how to bring players in and get production out of them very early on, even though there's a guy in front of them.
If you look back at the recent run of just Super Bowl winners, right, you have to go back all the way to 2014 after the 2013 season to find a Super Bowl champion team that had a one clear, undeniably bell cow running back, right? And that was the Seattle Seahawks, part of the Legion of Boom days with Marshawn Lynch, right? All the other title winners since then have done sort of a running back by committee approach. Teams don't do that because they want to. They'd rather have one guy. It makes it easier, makes it simpler. But the reality is, running back by committee is what works, right? And even though this is such an obvious trend we see throughout all of football, a lot of teams in the NFL, they don't take a very smart approach. They still have that old school mindset of, okay, we got our first string guy. He's going to get 70% of the carries and catches, and our second string guy is going to get 30%. They're going to divvy up the reps in the game, old school depth chart kind of stuff, right? But if you look at what the smart teams do, like the Rams, they take the pod approach. They sit there and say, okay, if we look at our entire running back room, talking about the running back position, and aggregate everything they can do together, does it equal the production we want, right? We're not sitting there saying Kyron Williams needs to get 70% of all the snaps. Corum needs to get 30%, and we hope it all works out. They're sitting there saying, okay, we're going to have Kyron Williams with what he's going to do in his packages, his plays, his situations. Blake Corum's going to have his own package of plays, his own situations, and together combined, they get the entire running back output we're looking for. I guarantee you guys watching this, I'm sure it sounds incredibly obvious. Most teams screw it up, right? There's a reason that the Chiefs continue to win Super Bowls. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes certainly helps, despite having not a lot of name talent at wide receiver and running back. It's because they take the same pod approach the Rams are, right? They sit there and say, okay, in the aggregate, we can add up all these individual contributions in our wide receiver room, and together it equals a quality wide receiver room, even though we don't have one clear star player, right? A lot of teams are still focusing on that star player. And the reality is having the aggregate approach, the pod approach, is the right way to do it, right? Because in today's NFL, frankly, in all NFL history, injuries happen. Kyron Williams missed time, right? Cooper Kupp missed time, right? The reality is you can't go whole hogs on one guy and sit there and say, okay, he's got to be the guy. We go as far as he takes us. You want to have a, pod approach. I'm going to keep hammering that because I think it's really important. I think the Rams really stumbled upon something here. And if you take that, aggregate mentality in terms of what you're using your players for, you can overcome injuries, right? You can overcome a player having a bad day. That's what the Rams saw in Blake Corum. They saw a guy who can come in here and add production, whether it's catching the football, running the football, pass protection, right? He can add it all paired with Kyron Williams. Again, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. That's the approach the Rams have used. We talked about it with Verse and Fisk. Now we're seeing it at the running back position as well, and it should produce really successful results for the Rams offense, both this season and in the future.